first question was going to be when most people think of zombie films, they don't necessarily think of drag queens, but I think I've kind of undone myself with what I've just said. Um, but how did the idea for, Queens of the Dead come together?
Well, I didn't think I wanted to touch the zombie genre, and people would always ask me, "Don't you want to make a zombie film?" And I would say, "No, I want to make gender flipped Peter Pan." And I just didn't want to do it unless I could figure out a way to do it in a enough and authentic to myself. And I spent many years after film school keeping my lights on as DJ Tricks in the queer nightlife scene of New York City. And there was this promoter rift that went down, and somebody posted online, when will the queer community stop devouring its own? And when I read that sentence, it just like hit me. I had a holy shit moment. This is how I want to look at zombies, is through the lens of queer nightlife. I just felt it would be such an incredible mashup of worlds. You know, drag queens, queer people, nightlife, color, mystery, underground New York. There's so much. There's so much there to dig into. And then zombies. And like zombies are delightful in their own way. And I thought the mashup of these two things were perfect. And I just knew in that moment, like this is my first feature. And it also felt like a perfect way to take the torch from my father and continue telling stories with the monster that he created, but from a female perspective in 2025 with the queer lens. It felt right. It felt right for the Romero legacy, and it felt right for me as a filmmaker.
I mean, you mentioned there, the aesthetic. This is, again, it looks very different to what people would normally imagine when, it comes to a zombie film. So, how did you kind of go about, glamming up the zombie film?
Yes, I from the beginning I was very interested in doing what I called glam gore, and I was pulling from my visual deck, which I had before I had a word written on the page. I started making my mood board and a playlist because that's how I work. Is like I start with colors and vibes and collaging, and I was pulling a lot of imagery from an artist named Marilyn Minter who does work that focuses around the fashion industry, and she's taking images like using saliva and gold and pearls, and she's oozing it all together in a way that's both like gross and beautiful. And I was very captivated by this concept of glam gore and how can we take this, how can first of all, zombies are very butch. Historically, like there it's a lot of flannel, there's a lot of denim, there's a lot of like gross rotting flesh. And I felt for this world I needed to like glam them up to begin with. Like I personally am a little bored of that aesthetic, and also like the world of queer nightlife deserves to have some fabulous looking zombies. So we together with like this incredible creative team, Christina Grant, head of makeup, David Tabbert, head of costumes, we all got together and talked about how we could make these zombies look fabulous. And what were they wearing on Saturday night, the night that they died out in Bushwick? Like they're in sequins, and also how can we call out, Dawn of the Dead, the zombies were straight up painted green, and I really liked that. So how can we kind of harken back to the Dawn of the Dead zombie, but bring in a little shimmer, leave room in the prosthetics so that we can have a fabulous eyeshadow. These types of things, like and together, they really got the assignment, and I'm so thrilled with the fact that we actually have glitter in the blood.
Yeah. We have to talk about the fantastic cast. I mean, how did you get them all together, and how much input did they have in their on-screen and sometimes, on-stage personas?
This cast is a dream come true. It's a miracle that we pulled together this absolutely phenomenal cast. Every single one of them I'm obsessed with. And we started the casting process long before we had any business to do so. I was writing letters years before we had a green light. And, I had in an ensemble cast movie, the casting is everything. And so I had my mood board of like wish list people, and Nina West was on there from the very beginning. For example, Katie O'Brien was on there, and I was writing letters to them, and basically got their interest. But and over time, we started to like we got more yeses. Actually, Dominique Jackson was my first official yes. And that was a very powerful yes, because I think when people see, okay, Dominique Jackson is interested, I will give this a more careful read. And then, of course, you get the green light, and you have to circle back and see if everybody is still available and down to do it. And so I would say we had like half of the cast attached before we had funding, and then when we got the green light, we had to reshape and a couple of last minute miracles fell into place. Like Jack Haven, for example, was we had somebody else cast as Kelsey, and at the 11th hour, she couldn't do it. And then here comes Jack Haven, who is the Kelsey of my dreams, honestly. And I remember having a Zoom with them about like because Kelsey, it was always important to me that Kelsey was a hyper femme character. I really wanted her to represent the like young, super girly lesbian who loves women. And Jack and I spoke, and I was like, "Are you down for this? Because I know your personal gender journey is not femmy at all." And they were like, "Hell yeah, I am down. I love to do drag." And so, Jack is in a blonde wig. They were in hair and makeup every day for 3 hours, putting that wig on. And it thrills me that there's a whole nother element of drag in the character of Kelsey happening here. And as far as like how much they all really brought a lot of their authentic selves to their roles, and I think that's why it feels um, the vibes feel so special and fun and playful is because they were comfortable in their own skin as these characters, and they knew they just all understood the assignment of like how to strike the balance between we got to nail our lines, we got to hit our marks, and now it's time to play. And there were certain scenes where we had to get the dialogue done and we had to stay on book, and there were other scenes where it was a little bit looser and they could improv, and improv they did. And I think then it became the balance in the edit of like not we could have had a 3 hour cut just with them being hams. Anyway, they were delightful and amazing, and I'm so proud of them all.
And horror has always been, it's always been for outsiders. There's always been a strong element of queer to it. But in recent
Yeah.
years, there has finally been like a strong drive in, voices from the queer community actually getting, to get their art out into the world. How do you think that these fresh perspectives have kind of helped mold the future of the genre?
Well, I think what's really exciting is that whereas in the past it's queerness has been more coded in horror, it's just like all things, like we're just more on the surface, we're more present, we're here. You can't deny us. And I think that it also comes down to having queer creatives behind the scenes as well, and having queer voices writing and designing and directing and shaping the project. And so I think that as more like I really think that I want to see more queer people getting paid to make queer content. And 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 that's I think like when you have authentic queer perspective coming at you, you feel it. Instead of forced like, we're gonna make this gay for pay. Like we're gonna use the queerness because it's cachet and it's fun and it's people like it. It's a different thing when it's actually coming from queer people, if that makes sense.
100%. I guess
Yeah.
my final question, in addition to releasing in the US, Queens of the Dead is going to open both Celluloid Screams in the UK and also Soho Horror Film Festival. Why should the UK be, getting tickets and going to those screenings?
Oh, I'm so psyched to share this overseas with the UK. And I really hope that the humor translates over there across the pond. And I think that I think that we all can relate to the same issues. I think the queer community is in all parts of the world. And I really I hope that you all love it over there as much as we do over here.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with this release and your future projects.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.